I'm here today with Robert Kraft, the CEO and co-founder of Atlas World Sports. And we're going to hear all about this company. It's a sports betting platform that as I understand it, it unifies your online sports betting apps into one place. Very innovative company in a very exciting space. Today, we're going to hear all about it, as well as his career, what's next in the world of online sports betting. Robert, thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thank you, Will. And it's an honor to be here representing Atlas, but also to be a part of this with your audience. And I've enjoyed, listening to your podcasts and all the material you have out here. So for us to be able to be here today and have a little bit of an audience, thank you.
Well, we're now in the Mutual Admiration Society because I've been looking forward to this for a little while now. And in fact, you did another company that maybe we'll talk a little bit about, which hit 60 million in revenue and was, very successful in a different space. If we have time, I'd love to potentially hear about that. To start, can you just tell us a little bit about how would you describe Atlas World Sports?
Yeah, sure. And happy to dip in and out of that, maybe as I'm kind of the anecdotes make sense, but
Absolutely. Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
past is the past, and the we're here for Atlas too. So I'll give you the good stuff today because, look, it's football season. Few games have kicked off, and this is the betting time of the year. So we're happy to be. They say Christmas is the most wonderful time of the year. We think in sports betting in the United States that football is the most wonderful time of the year. So, really, being a digital marketing guy, I got into it because I was already an entrepreneur. And the minute I was following that Supreme Court ruling in May of 2018, kind of led by state of New Jersey, and Chris Christie, overturning PASPA, so the professional and amateur sports betting, made it illegal outside of Nevada, a few other states, but that was really it. And the whole push was just saying, hey, look, I thought it was just going to be a ruling on fantasy, quite frankly. FanDuel and DraftKings were kind of doing their daily fantasy at the time, and I really thought it was going to go down there. Had no idea that they were going to legalize sports betting across the board. But to their wisdom, they did. I think they looked at cannabis and saw it as, look, federally, cannabis is not legal, even to this day in 2025 that we're talking. But the state's legalized, and I think it's created a big issue, banking and other regulatory issues, as well as potential security. And people were doing offshore betting, sports betting, to the tune of about $250 billion a year in the United States. Well, why wouldn't we just tax that? If we can't track this online behavior, let's regulate it and go that. So they legalized it. And right then I got smacked in the head with that epiphany moment, or the light bulb moment, as people like to say. And that was it. I said, geez, everybody's going to think they can be a sports book, and I'm not going to compete with Vegas. I want to partner with them. Let's build the Expedia or the Kayak or the Travelocity or Hotels Tonight of sports fans and sports betting. So ultimately, we've created now, where we are 7 years later, this kind of perfect Venn diagram. If you can see my hands, I'm kind of holding up, kind of three areas for those that are watching. And, one is the operators, two are the leagues, and then three would be the users. And we're in that perfect middle because we want to be trusted by all of them, giving unbiased information and lines and data to everybody, and make sure that it's responsible gaming across the board. So that was kind of it. And here we are 7 years later. And, the first couple of years was just really doing homework and studying and going to the conferences. And then COVID hit, and it was like, all right, here we go.
So COVID actually probably spurred this on tremendously, I would think.
Yeah, it did. It was a little trepidatious, I guess, as it was for anybody in any walk of life, whether they were an entrepreneur or they were just, an employee at a restaurant, just waiting tables, and all of a sudden nobody's allowed to come in anymore, right? So we didn't look at ourselves any more special than all of us trying to figure this out together. But the one thing, as an optimist, I said, holy cow, wait a minute. So the leagues are done playing, right? Okay, yeah, they're not. I said, well, that's actually an opportunity because it's going to freeze everybody in their tracks. And we're just coding anyway. So we're in development mode. And so I said, man, this kind of freezes anybody that I might be competing against that I don't even know yet. So I told our developers and our team, I said, just double down and let's just code as fast as we can. And if the leagues never come back, that means, the world ended. And so we're all kind of in big trouble anyway. So in a weird way, it was a little serendipitous, as spooky as it was, I guess, for all of us on, just individual levels across the world, really. But I looked at it like, wow, as an entrepreneur, from the business side, this is an opportunity to just push and
Yeah.
maybe at least close the gap against potential competitors that we don't know about that are out there, or ones that are, and just maybe bring a year into our favor. So it was a little bit lucky, I guess, and I'm very much okay with being lucky than good at stuff.
Yeah, so okay, so there are a number of directions I want to go, but why don't we maybe back up for a moment? How's the company funded?
So we have, I obviously got it going to a certain point, and then in 4 years ago, we started bringing on, first outside investors. Once we had an actual app that was in the app store and, website, and we kind of proof of concept, we were past that, the old MVP, as they talk about in the tech world, because that was really the play. So it happens that sports betting is our Trojan horse, but make no bones about it. This is about data. This is about marketing
Okay.
and understanding how to, and marketing in a positive way, not so we can push stuff to people, but so we can better create the ultimate experience for each user when they're interacting with a sports book, or if they just want to get scores and stats and everything else, which is ultimately good for the leagues and the operators in the end too. So if we can make that, the word frictionless gets thrown around a lot, but or Amazon, the one click type of button stuff, that's kind of the way we really looked at it. So, going back to just everything from my background in direct marketing, Atlas is really just how do we create the smoothest model for all the users out there, no matter what side of the coin they're looking from. And
Okay.
that's how we want to partner with everybody.
Okay, so that makes sense. And that so you were financially in a decent spot when COVID hit. You were able to work on product development. You're able to kind of get things kind of keep the ball moving forward. Um, can you define a few terms for us though? What is a sports book? What
Yeah,
yeah,
certainly. Certainly. And just to be clear on the financing side, we are now in Series A. So we had a very successful seed round, and then just to touch on that now we're in Series A and our valuation has gone up because we're really going back to the tech play. We are not just something outside of that. We are certainly a tech company that has that exponential growth that's occurring, and so we're very, very lucky that way. So it's been good. We're at the back end of our Series A round, and hopefully we'll be able to announce that it's closed here soon. We have a lot of contracts flying around with the attorneys in a good way, and so we're excited. But as far as like a sports book, we really it's the operators, the MGM, and this is all legal, by the way. So we only work with the legal operators. FanDuel has a sports book. DraftKings has a sports book. Of course, all the big Vegas houses, the MGM, Caesars, Circa, etc. And so we're only working with the online ones. Anybody who has an online presence in the states where online is legal. If some of the states are legal, but they don't have any online. So we're not publishing those lines. It's really for the consumer that could sit on his couch and maybe place a bet. Our headquarters in Chicago, so Illinois is obviously legal, so you could sit right here and just place a bet, and there it is, and you get all the books. So the sports books, from a simple term, they're holding the lines and they're taking the other side of whatever bet somebody puts. So, if
Okay.
odds are out there of, the team is given 3 points, the Bears are giving 3 points to the Vikings, and you take the Vikings, well, the book, effectively is taking the other side of that bet. And as money comes in, those lines move because they ultimately want 50% of the money on one side of the ledger and 50% of the other in a perfect world.
Mm-hmm. I see. So then what you're doing is you're allowing people to kind of see all of those sports books in one place at one time and decide the most favorable place to place their bet?
That's exactly right.
Oh,
Yeah, Will. So we are, you pull up that same game, the Bears Vikings game for the example that we used there, and we would have the Caesars line standing next to the MGM line, standing next to the FanDuel line, standing next to DraftKings, so on and so forth.
I see.
And perhaps one line is at 3 points, but another is at 2.5, and another might be at 3.5. So because different books have different lines based on what they believe from their, odds makers and their algorithms, but also from the money that comes in because maybe one book gets more money in from Minnesota fans, so it starts to move the line, compress it a different way, and the other is getting it more from Bears fans, so it compresses the other way, and then that's when a fan on the other side says, "Oh, let me get on that." I mean, so that's where guys are shopping lines, as they say, and we help with that. So, all else being equal, you might as well look at Atlas because we're going to show you all the books, and the books
Yeah.
enjoy us doing that because we're making sure we're helping market them, but also, you want to know as a sports bettor or whether you're a novice or a professional, you want to know, boy, if I'm going to bet on the Bears, well, why would I give up a point if I don't have to? So I'll just put that
Right.
same bet with FanDuel, if I'm picking up a point with those guys. So there's a lot of that math that we're doing for the users out there to make it really easy and say, this is it. And then the books will take that bet.
I see. I see. So then that really is why it's the Expedia of online gaming. Is that kind of just
Right.
where that comes
Yeah.
from?
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Just like booking a flight, you're going on a trip, a vacation, whatever, and
Yeah.
you go, okay, well, American Airlines is publishing this flight time. Okay, that's a decent one, but what's the price? Oh, it's $450. What about this one round trip? Oh, okay, well, I could do this first leg out there with United, and on the way back, I could come Delta and it's only 370 all in, so that's better than the other deal. Great, I'll take that. I mean, that's kind of that same concept. Or, you're in a town and you say, I want a 4-star hotel. I'm willing to pay up to $200 for the night, and maybe a few populate, and maybe the others are just outside of it. And you go, cool, I'll take this Marriott, and it's at 178, and great, I got a deal for the night. I feel good.
Very cool. So now, as I understand it, your app is in the top 100 for iGaming executives. Is that right?
Well, close. I don't like to say it, but it was me personally that was nominated as a top 100.
Oh, okay, okay. I see. Okay, very
Um,
nice.
I would hope that we're pushing for top 10 for the app itself.
Okay.
But yeah, it was quite an honor. Contessa Brewer is in that list, who's from CNBC, and I don't know how they had me a couple notches in front of her, which I think it made me blush because she's amazing and I see her. I've got CNBC on every day in my office and she's incredible. Governor Pritzker of Illinois was somewhere, 20 ahead of me, and he should be, way ahead of me. I couldn't even believe I made the list. So it was really
That's
an honor,
interesting.
but I think it's a testament to the team. I don't think it's a
Yeah.
testament to me, but like what we've got, I think we've got something that we're pretty excited about, and really is powerful because
Yeah.
we also have daily fantasy that we've built out that will be launched later here in the next month or so, and that's a whole other line. So we've got then fantasy, we've got sports betting, and we have some people that are encouraging to look into standing up some of the other gaming technologies, across
Yeah.
because of what we do in software, because we wrote this all from scratch. So the cool thing is we own the software, we own this technology, and now that we've got that foundation, we can just keep kind of building off of it. So yeah, we're very, very fortunate for where we are and very bullish on where this market is. It's supposed to grow certainly a compound annual growth rate of minimally 10% for the
Wow.
next 5 to 10 years in the United States, if not significantly more. And really because it was a kind of a black market, if you will, legal, and now all of a sudden legalized. So you're just regulating it. So all that activity was there, and now we're fortunately taxing it and
Yeah.
bringing it above board and helping people to have a good experience, and protecting the consumers, but also helping, bring much needed tax revenue into the states and the federal government, especially after COVID, right? I mean,
Yeah.
it's, anywhere we can get, money to balance budgets a little bit easier. I think that's a good thing for everybody, especially when it's done in a voluntary basis, if you want to call it that. It's a
Mhm.
variable type of situation, not a fixed.
What are the most popular sports to bet on? I mean, football, I would assume. I think you might have even said is number one.
Yeah, NFL
What are the
is
ones
the
after
king.
that?
Yeah, NFL is certainly the king, Will. NCAA football is right there. And obviously you've got your two, American football, but NFL is the juggernaut. NBA is big right after that, but I mean the NFL, just think of the NFL, they're over 50% of all kind of the sports betting market for the United States. So
Wow.
there, I mean, you're just kind of clobbering it, and with college football mixed in, I think you end up being in the 55%, 60% of all bets in the year are tied into that because there's just people love their football. Sunday, Saturday football, Saturday watch college, Sunday you watch the NFL, and then once you get into the playoffs, and of course, as I'm sure you well know, the Super Bowl, people bet on it that have never even bet in their life from all over the world. But then after that, certainly in the United States, you're talking the NBA, the big leagues, MLB, NHL, getting some MLS going a little bit. We certainly publish that, and then we publish boxing and UFC and the others, and we'll keep adding on. We're hoping to
Okay. Okay.
get into horse racing, for those types of fans down the
Yeah.
road, kind of the niche and, EPL, European soccer, La Liga, Bundesliga, all of those big soccer leagues, and maybe cricket one day too for those fans. But by far in the United States, the NFL is the king. Do not let anybody tell you otherwise.
Okay. I'm a fan of UFC and I like jujitsu and various things. I mean, jujitsu I would assume is too niche and a very pretty to enter into this, but UFC I know is big.
Yeah, there are jujitsu lines out there. We don't
Okay.
republish them because there's not just enough activity. However, we have met with politicians from Brazil, and other countries because we wrote our software so we could change the language as well as the
Hmm.
sport inputs based on where we go because we weren't looking at just the United States alone. The United States is our jumping platform. And then once we kind of get our sea legs underneath us, as they say, and the investors are ready, we think in the next 2 years we can start partnering with the sports books in Mexico and Brazil and do different instances of it. And if we have to change the colors, but like Brazil, for example, going back to your jujitsu, they obviously love martial arts and
Yeah.
mixed martial arts in particular. So we know that would be the number one. So whereas
Yeah.
here we show
Yeah.
NFL in the United
Interesting.
States, but maybe in Brazil, we're showing all the mixed martial arts, and it might be, multiple different feeds
Yeah.
of it, as well as then maybe our brand ambassadors are Brazilian jiu-jitsu stars or whomever it might be, right? It's certainly they don't want to see some American celebrity tell them about Brazil and their
Right.
sports. Somebody local there, or perhaps you talk about the Dominican Republic, maybe it's a baseball player, somebody who's just
Right.
a stud in the MLB and that baseball is kind of their number one for it and soccer too. And so, we've really set this up so we can adjust.
I see.
And so over time, what happens with the app is we have machine learning inside, which people love calling, throwing the AI term out there,
Yeah.
but we built it in from day one with machine learning or AI, if you want to call it that. But we're learning the habits of our users in a positive way that if you aren't clicking on a sport ever, why should that throttle up to the top? Like we should always have the
Right.
sports that you're into pull the top. You might see these are my favorites, but if you're never clicking on them, they would just get rattled down. And the one you're clicking on all the time will always be kind of at the top. Well, we can start to do that in other countries as well. So we're kind of perfecting that on the inside. And we
Mm.
think within the next year, that will be really, it'll be very fluid and agile for each user. And it'll be very hyper personalized to each user even if they don't say this is my favorite team. If they say, "Oh, my favorite team is the Green Bay Packers," but you're always clicking on the Rams and getting the Los Angeles Rams information more than you are the Packers, well, you might say the Packers are your favorite, but you're obviously interfacing with them more. So we might start stacking it until you say, "Absolutely not, always Packers first," even though I'm clicking on it, right? So
Yeah.
really, it just gets more and more intuitive for the user, and that's the way we like to think.
That's interesting. Yeah, and that I don't know if that's partly from your marketing background, but we always think of that as voting with clicks, and people are kind of telling you what they're actually interested in. It sounds like you've kind of adopted a little bit of that.
Yeah, right. I mean, it goes all the way back to, years ago when all you were really doing was watching, the monitor for where a mouse was rolling over on a website, right? And you're kind of doing the heat mapping of that.
Yeah.
Well, now it's the same thing inside of an app. So where are people clicking? What are they not clicking? What's turning them off? And it really goes back to my background from marketing. When I was a little kid, my dad introduced me to a consultant of his from direct marketing, Paco Underhill, and he's
Mm.
now a best-selling New York Times best-selling author. Paco is the reason that the Targets and Walmarts and all the big box retail stores are laid out the way they are. Like you have this huge 50 feet of two different doors you come in when you come in from the outside. That's called the decompression zone. And then when you go in, you get products introduced to you over lighter music or upbeat, happy music, candles that have holes in the top so you can smell them, and all of that. That was all
Huh.
Paco from the 80s and 90s. He took all
Fascinating.
the streaming video and would fast forward. It was all the security footage. Well, and then he would change the end caps and different colors and see what that would do to adjust it and the foot traffic from there. Well, we think of it in the same way. My challenge to all of our guys is, well, it's the same foot traffic. It's just now on a phone or on a computer, but
Yeah.
it's no different than 20, 30 years ago measuring the way people were walking through a mall or a grocery store or, whatever physically. Now it's us measuring, what pages are people clicking on and all that. And then that should become your priority. And they'll tell you, ultimately, the consumers and the users will tell you what's your most valuable product and your what your real value proposition is as a company. So we're trying to be as in tune with that as possible to ultimately say, that people will back us in agreeing that, well, we are a trusted, platform for everybody out there that they just want to come to, right? That they just say Atlas is the place I go to before I put any bet on because I want to see what's out there. And they save me 5 minutes of having to open up three different sportsbook apps or five or whatever because they've got it all. And then when I'm ready to bet, it just puts me right in to the Caesars bet or the FanDuel bet or whatever. So we want to just build that trust day in and day out with all of the users and the sports books and the leagues, of course. And,
Mm.
we want to be partners to all of them the right way.
So, what was the biggest challenge in building the platform in the early days? Was it technical, regulatory, something different?
I think it was really just, can we do this?
Yeah.
Can I get my idea out of my brain and can it get into software? Because
Yeah.
I could see it. I know it's possible. And I was always taught and always learned that even as a kid, when I was building stuff, Legos or whatever, that, I just would build anything. Right. And it's like, well, I just need time and resources to be able to do it, but I can see it. And so how do I put it? And then now in software, I learned that it's the same thing. It's really, do you have time and resources and does the market shift on you by the time you get it built, right? So it's always a race against the clock because it might be a great idea right now that people would love right now, but if it takes you 10 years to get there,
Yeah.
the market has shifted completely and then you miss the boat, even though it was a great idea. I mean, we all know those people that had the perfect mousetrap, but they never put it out into the world because they still were trying to perfect it. And then all of a sudden the market shifted and they said, boy, I could have made a ton of money at that, but we just missed it. Well, sometimes you got to push the horse out of the barn and get that thing running around the track. And, or as we like to say, we got a high-end Nissan now. About a year and a half ago, it was maybe a low end, and we've upgraded and we're building it and we're turning it into a Ferrari while we're driving it around the track, and we're very close to getting there. And that's the way we look at it. That it's just it's an everyday thing, and you just have to be in it. But yeah, that was the scariest thing, probably, of just can what I see here, making sure it's not an ego thing or something else that you're just, oh yeah, we could do anything, right? But really, I knew we could do it. but it was, can we do it in time? Can we? And you know, we've been so fortunate with the investment community, and they see what this opportunity is, and they know what's going on here, and they've been beyond supportive, and they're really reaching out to us and saying, "Hey, how can we support you more? And who can we introduce you to? Or do you need, you know, more capital for the next round, or you know, whatever?" And it really has been as daunting as I thought that would be. That actually became easier as we got further down the road.
That's great.
Not easier in a you know, flippant way by any means, but easier that it's a real product that they can play with. And a lot of them, a lot of our investors said, geez, I gave it to my son who's, you know, he's a junior in college and he loved it. And I told him that you guys are doing this, this, and this next. And he knows that once you guys get to that stage, it's going to be, you know, awesome. Cats, whatever you want to fill in there, right? So
Yeah.
that's what we're working towards, right? But yeah, it was definitely a little spooky, you know, just, you know, making sure, you know, pride cometh before the fall. And it wasn't just an ego saying, we can do it because I know you can, but can we do it in enough time frame to make it relevant to
Yeah.
users? And I think we're there, and which is also why we're now in the metaverse as well.
Interesting. Okay, so can you tell us what your top priority is from a growth perspective? And let me take a guess. So it's got to be either user acquisition or country acquisition. Like you've got get breaking into new markets, going after, just, different markets that you're not in currently. Am I in the ballpark?
You're 100% in the ballpark, Will. And what we you know, backburnered the other country growth, right? Um, just so that we are just dead focused, kind of horse blinders on the United States.
Mhm.
So with that, absolutely user growth. So we are now, we just started rolling out. Your timing is very, very good. So we started rolling out in the month of May for football season. So we're now at the back end of August. By the time this is published for people to listen to, it's probably September or whatever it is. But at this point in time, just before Labor Day, um, we have been working for the last 4 months tirelessly on organic growth in the App Store, both iOS and Android.
Okay.
So we went from, if you went in the App Store and you typed in uh, Atlas World Sports, you could find us. But if you typed in just Atlas, we'd be at 150. Now we're at the point, if you type in NFL lines, we're number one in the App Store in Android. I don't know what we are exactly in iOS. We have a ton that we're number one in, though. So if you type in MLB odds in the iOS App Store, we're number one. And of course, if somebody buys an ad right before it, we're right behind it. But we're number one organically. We're number one in like 10 slots right now going into the NFL season in both Android and iOS. And then we're like top 25 for about 50 words, keywords in total. And we have 550 to 600 in total we're working on. So we've really worked, and we're going to continue doing that. And we're just every day, you know, just working those algorithms and making sure we're appropriate for the App Store and all the coverage and everything else is right. So you know, we've gone a long way there. And you know, so downloads, we are now, and we just added 5,000 downloads over the last couple months just because of that. So, and then we're going to add on the subscription model here in the next couple months. And so it's really going to be, and we started turning revenue here, which is great. And so for us, it's really accelerating on the revenue curve, which we know we can because we're doing all kinds of digital marketing. We can do IP address targeting, and
Okay.
we have a big partnership coming in through the airports with their loyalty groups of all airports throughout the United States. So watch for us there in your travels in 2026. It should be fun. When you have a layover or have a flight delay, all of a sudden you might get pinged by Atlas, and you know, we'll buy you a beer, and you can go watch the game and have a beer on us. So that we're kind of working on some fun things for people that are in an unfortunate situation,
I
a
see.
layover. We all hate that when the weather hits and you're stuck in Denver International on a layover going cross country, or O'Hare or LaGuardia or Miami or wherever you are. It's basically the top 100 airports in the country we'll be able to work with. And, we're going to figure out how to get somebody a beer if their flight's been delayed, if they're, fit into our demographics, of course, and say, hey, go watch the game at, the Sam Adams bar or whatever bar is in that. And we'll take care of you. So, for us, it's about downloads 100% in the United States. But then we're also working on turning the revenue. And we know within the next 6 months, our cash flow will actually be making a profit based on what our projections say. And that's pretty impressive when you're in a tech company and also able to turn profit. So
Yeah.
we're feeling very confident for the investors and users alike, and we'll just keep reinvesting that to add the growth. And then we start looking on to the other countries, to your point, Will. So you were absolutely right on just a separation from a timing standpoint.
Okay. Interesting. So you mentioned something I wanted to dig into. So when I was on the Atlas website, I see that there's so many offers from these different, and I guess I'm going to call them sports books. So like
Yeah,
FanDuel is a sports book, right? Yeah. So
correct.
so if somebody uses FanDuel through Atlas, you can get, like you bet $5, you get 150 in bonus bets, something, they're and every one of them seems to have great offers. Is that just because we're at the beginning stages here? Everybody's is flush with cash and they're able to kind of entice people in so that they can start placing their first bets?
Yeah, great question. Maybe I can let a little insight on maybe where the regulatory framework
Sure.
goes
Yeah, I
from
love
here
that.
as well. So yes, we get paid on, the CPA fees, right? Cost per acquisition. So we help
Mhm.
users get introduced to FanDuel if they don't already have a sportsbook account with FanDuel, and then just create an account. And then obviously we get marketing fees for helping FanDuel grow their user base. But we do that with all the sports books because really we're obviously big believers in, if you're going to be betting, you might as well look at all the lines to make sure you're getting the best line in your favor. So
Yeah.
right now, those are the only kind of fees that can be paid. So revenue sharing is not there. So the reason those promos are good right now is, yeah, they're trying to really grow their base, and that'll continue for a while. However, it looks like what's going to happen is it will start to move over to more retention based
Mhm.
marketing dollars. So you might already have a FanDuel account. They will most likely allow us down the road to say, "Hey, Will, you haven't been here in a while. We're going to push you this promo on behalf of FanDuel. If you bet this next weekend, you get a 2 for 1 or whatever, bonus bet of $50 if you bet, wager $10. Already a customer, but you haven't used them in a while. So that's the guidance that's starting to come. And then from a regulatory framework, there's a good likelihood that there will be fees able to be shared on a revenue basis on the back end with companies like us, because ultimately we're just a continual marketing engine, and we're also going to work to, we're looking to partner with, we're already kind of partnering in the responsible gaming, but I've been exploring more opportunities from a board standpoint to get involved, at a higher level for, how can we be part of a solution before we even know that it needs it that badly. But it's like anything else, it's like drinking. There's nothing wrong with it as long as you're smart about it, right? Take an Uber home. Well, same thing with gambling there, or, betting on sports or putting a wager or whatever, having a cigarette or, cigar. I'm not advocating for anything, but adults are allowed to do adult stuff, but you've got to keep it in control. And so we want to make sure we're helping with stay ahead of some of that stuff, so that people can also know and trust us from that standpoint, that we're not trying to, we don't care if somebody spends money with Atlas, actually, because we know the greater kind of good is going to be fine for us. We don't need to shake every user down for a transactional dollar. So if you don't want to bet tonight, that's no problem. If you just want to use us for scores and free news and AP news and all that, and some of the other blog stuff that we're going to end up adding, and that's great. You know what? We just want that healthy environment. We want everybody to do what's within their limits. So, we really look at ourselves as a total ecosystem for kind of the sports world, sports betting, fantasy, sports fans, because we also have a partnership with, say, Fubo TV,
Mhm.
StubHub. So, we want to make sure, hey, if you just want tickets to the game and you happen to just put down a bet that's on a game that's in your area, we always can get you a discount on that too. And we say, hey, if you want to go to the game, here's some tickets, and through StubHub, that kind of thing, or Fubo TV. Maybe you just don't have a subscription to them, but you just want to be able to watch the game. And we all know, with TV now, everything's so broken up and different platforms. It's sometimes hard to find, where's my team playing the other weekend, the Brewers, Milwaukee Brewers are having a great season. I'm a big fan of. They had a Friday night game on Apple TV. So, that's not their normal. And fortunately I had an Apple subscription, but, my wife and I are watching and, you had to flip over there. Well, that wasn't an issue 10 years ago, right? It's just on your cable package and that's it. Well, so we want to be a part of helping all that kind of stuff too. Just ultimately the way a TV guide used to be, we are now going to be a TV guide, a sports betting guide, a fantasy guide, and just, a partner to all the users and leagues and operators as well.
So you acquired lockspread.com 2024. What was the motivation behind that acquisition?
So that was really because it felt, we knew that it fit into our ecosystem of where we want to go. We are not ever trying to compete with the sports books, so we never intend to go down that road. But to add on, a nice daily fantasy option for users, that they don't want to bet, but they just want to play a fun little game of, set my NBA lineup for the night or whatever, and just $10 and just keep an eye on all these games because I'm going to watch them. That's what we wanted to do. So, Lockspread kind of had the framework, and we needed to kind of redo it and rebuild it. And we've been working hard on it since we started really the build in November. So now we have live data running through the MLB works. We had college basketball in the back end of NBA working. So now we're just doing that final sprint for the NFL and NCAA football, which we think it'll probably be, properly publicized to everybody, probably middle of the football season, if not sooner than that. But, we'll kind of quietly bring it out and let people use it and test it and make sure everything's good. And then we'll say, hey, here we are, come on. So we think that's a nice compliment for maybe somebody that's either in a state that they can't bet on sports regularly, like say California or Texas. And it's an opportunity for us to build our brand, certainly from a business standpoint. But we really see it as just, some people just aren't into betting, but they like the idea of playing fantasy, being a general manager. That's great. Put in $5, $10, set your lineup for the night, and have fun watching your NBA games in the middle of winter, and that's a fun thing for people. So we just really want to kind of be that ecosystem. I keep going back to that, but allow people to go in through whatever door they want. So we, going back to that retail example, you liken it to, say, a grocery store. They put milk and dairy in the back for a reason, because that's a convenience good. And so they designed it so that you have to walk through the whole grocery store to get all the way to your milk and your butter before you can leave. Well, now you pass by the Frito-Lay, you pass by the Hostess cupcakes, and you pass by all this bakery stuff, and you go, do that. Next thing you know, you end up walking out with $30 of purchases rather than 10, right? And we don't want to have to do that for the user. We want to have doors all throughout. If you can picture that grocery store,
Yeah.
what if there's a door that goes right into your dairy section? All I need to do is drive there. I'll park right in front of the door, walk in, get my milk, get my eggs, get my butter, whatever, and I'm out. And you don't have to walk through other stuff. That's the way we want Atlas. If you want to come in and just play fantasy tonight, great. You go through there. You want to get into the best lines, great. We'll give you that. You want just news, stats, information, we'll get you just that. We'll let you get that, access it easily, so that it becomes, once again, frictionless to the user, because we don't want them to have to go through this thorny patch of, hey, do you want to bet? It's like the guy selling you the fake Rolexes in Times Square, opening the coat to you and saying, I got these. and you're going, hey man, I'm just trying to get to my subway or trying to get home to friends or whatever, that kind of thing. Like, we don't want that. I don't like that feeling as a user, and I don't ever want us to be that as a company or a platform for users.
Yeah. So I always ask CEOs when I talk to them about AI, and this is off the topic of your business potentially.
Yeah.
I'm just interested in, are you personally well, I already know you're integrating AI to a certain extent into your product, but are you using AI to manage the business? Are you using it kind of in your business interactions, or are you using it in your personal life in any way?
First of all, I love AI, but I think AI is only as good as you being the manager for it, right? I think
Yeah,
it's like being a boss. It's like it's an employee for you that will do exactly what you ask when you ask, never show up late, that kind of thing. But it's not intuitive where it thinks beyond the exact situation you give it, right? So, AI doesn't say, well, if you were asking that question, my logic tells me that there's something behind door number two that you're not asking me yet. And is there something else we need to kind of dig into, right? And so that's where people have to be very careful with AI, that it can be misleading because it's literally biased to what the boss, the owner of said account asks it to do. And then you go, well, see, look at this report that AI spit out for me. Well, what were the questions you asked it, right? So for us, I'm a big fan. We obviously have it inside of Atlas, but we built it specifically for that, for the users to have a better experience. And over time, that'll continue to get better as it learns and builds and learns and builds, and we tweak it. But on a personal side, I use it. Really, it's almost like I feel like it's like my sixth grade teacher, where I'm, having it do a better job of proofreading for something of
yeah,
proper document I'm getting out. But then sometimes it kind of makes it a little too robot or
I agree with
rigidity, and
you.
it's real, right? And it's like, I'm like, that's not my voice. But there are times where it's like, yeah, I was a little wordy with that. It was good that it chopped it up and
Yeah,
just tightened it up. And it's normally it would be me sending it to one of my co-founders or somebody else and say, hey, can you give me this a read over once over and make sure my voice sounds all right on it, or I'm not trying to hammer them on this, but
sure.
I want them to know that we're kind of turning up the heat a little bit. How does that sound? And now I think I use it for that more than anything else, because I still want my voice coming through. I don't like the idea.
Great.
I think it's good for legal stuff when we're working with our attorneys and they kind of send me something. I go, read this and tell me, what do I need to know? And it kind of
I've
gives me
used it
that.
for that also.
Yeah, and it saves me, 20 pages. And then I kind of know, okay, these first three pages are the standard terms and conditions, that kind of thing. So maybe it helps me read more stuff that is outside of my expertise, or
Yeah,
stuff that's just kind of the time consuming. So I think it's been good for that from a time saver standpoint, maybe, and boiling things down. But I still don't trust it 100%, because there's still stuff within the legal document that I need to know it. Even though it's like standard language or whatever, it's still important that I actually know that it's there, because that's it's like railroad tracks, right? It's like, oh, there is a railroad track there. Okay, good. So, but what does help us is my co-founder is also an adjunct professor at Milwaukee School of Engineering for AI, artificial intelligence. So, I've tasked him with a few interesting projects that potentially, some of these grad students could come out with a nice opportunity of being part of the Atlas team. So more to come there for sure. But we've kind of got that as we're calling it our black ops or something, stealth AI that we're working on, that kind of they can do it in a university level. So we're kind of excited about that.
nice.
And gee whiz, a couple college and grad students are kind of excited about sports and sports betting. What do you know?
Shocker.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. That is very close to how I'm using AI as well. I'm testing out as many things as I can, as many ideas as I can come up with, and now most of them fall on their face. Like most of them, like AI is great in a lot of ways, But, for instance, it was a really good idea to take a thread in ChatGPT and just have a continuous thread where you would use social media posts and you'd get it to rewrite them in ways that it says are going to go viral more effectively than whatever you wrote originally. How often do they go viral more than what a human has written? The
Mhm.
jury is out. Certainly it's not 100. It does not bat 100. On that. So I think, but I'm still running the tests. I want to see, and I think it'll catch up pretty soon.
I agree with you. I mean, it is pretty fascinating. One thing, I mean, I love about the world we're in. Look, technology is here to stay and it's going to continue to grow and get stronger. And I understand and agree with Elon, where he's like, we have to be really careful. And Zuckerberg shut down that group within Facebook because it started speaking a language that they couldn't understand. Google certainly has talked about it with regards to Gemini and some of the other stuff. We do have to. But it's not, we're not putting that horse back in the barn, so we have to be really
Uh,
careful. But I mean, because it could be, it could be running our, machines and military in no time. And we've all seen the Terminators, right? It's
yeah,
like
Cyberdyne
it's
Systems.
yeah, it's is art imitating reality, or is reality imitating art? We're gonna find out, but it's here to stay, and we might as well be part of the wave and know how to use it the right way. So I like experimenting with. I like that kind of stuff, and in fact, tonight I'm going to. I told my wife, we've got a whole chicken to kind of cook up tonight. So I'm going to try. I was actually thinking this morning, I'm like, I'm going to throw this at AI and say, what is the best chicken recipe I should do and how? And we'll see what it comes with. I'm not
Good
going to
idea.
guarantee that I'm going to use that recipe. I'll tell you that much, because it might just say, oh, put some barbecue sauce on it and cook it to whatever temperature, and then you're
Yeah.
done. So who knows? But I'm kind of curious, like what it does when you get into the cooking realm, or kind of
Yeah.
more of the arts and culinary side of the world.
Well, Robert, I really appreciate this time. This has been a great episode. Was there anything we didn't talk about that we should have gotten to today?
No, this was wonderful, Will, and I really appreciate you having me on Atlas World Sports, and on behalf of Atlas and my team, and we really appreciate it and thank you. And you're doing just a great job. I've really enjoyed getting to know your podcast, and it's a pleasure to be here, with you live here today, and get to know you. So thank you, and I look forward to many more in the future. And anything we
Absolutely.
can do down the road, you please let me know.
That sounds great. And yeah, I want to keep following Atlas's progress. And I think you guys are at a really exciting stage. And so I'd love to have you back on at some point in the future.
Awesome. We'll tell you about the international expansion then. That'll be fun, in metaverse. We'll talk
Let's do
about
it.
that. Great. Thanks, Will. I appreciate it.